So Mike brought up that the 31 when you're up 31-10 and it's 3rd and 17, that bust in particular kind of flipped the game. And he said, I think he said all 10 did it right. One guy got the wrong read. Were you? I guess how concerned are you about the communication breakdowns that Coach Norvell was talking about? And I guess how do you go about fixing them with a big game coming up this week?
Yeah, I was concerned on that play for sure. And you saw it. In the moment we finally gained control of the game, and you get them, and it was 3rd and forever. When you have game plans, you have situations. Sometimes it doesn't come up till those moments, right? And that's just, unfortunately, the lesson learned of being dialed in throughout the game when it comes up. And the minute that ball was snapped, and I saw it starting to unfold. And defense is like that sometimes. If 10 guys execute and one guy does the wrong thing, and the ball finds that place, it becomes a big issue. And so it's another lesson learned that it takes 11 to operate as one. Especially on defense. If the ball doesn't find the mistake, then people don't see it. But when it finds it, it becomes very glaring and obvious. And that's a harder way to learn the lesson, but it's a lesson that needed to be learned.
Just following up on that, this defense really didn't give up a lot of big passing plays last year. There have been some so far this year. Any common themes to it, or things that the teams are doing?
I don't think. Some of it has been, when we played some mobile quarterbacks and just, probably having eyes and trying to help out in places that you shouldn't help out, and then you lose leverage, and now you're in a chase race. And so I think, there hasn't been one individual per se or one group, and it's just you're constantly trying to build it where you have options to play multiple things and take away things that people are doing. And I think our guys, they want to play really well, and so I think we've had some really poor eyes, especially on some of these scramble situations that we gotta tie up and fix.
Might ultimately be a similar answer, but with some of the 3rd down lapses this past week, I guess common denominators there, or things that you think you guys need to clean up on moving forward.
Yeah, I mean there wasn't really a common, there was a unbalanced scramble. There was a counter run on a 3rd and extra long. There was a couple quarterback draws in there that we just, so it's just tying it all together. And the ball found the mistakes, and that's something that you continue to harp to your group, and you continue to harp to the individuals of, mistakes need to be addressed and cleaned up, and we did it. And so now we got to go play better.
On the rewatch, Omar Graham, someone that kind of stood out in that game. What were your assessment of him and just the linebacker group overall in that game?
We got to keep getting Omar in there a little bit more. He's now fully healthy and he's moving better, and I've got good confidence in Omar. And so, when we have called his number, for the most part, he's gone in there and executed well. We got to help him and put him in probably more positions and get him involved even a little bit more. But I feel really good about Omar. I think he fits in with those other 3, and we got to continue to give him those opportunities.
The first-team defense didn't play many snaps against Southern Miss. I think Boston College ran 73 plays on Saturday. How did you feel the defense held up physically, fatigue-wise, just in a much longer game?
I mean, there were some. We had, some guys played their most reps they've played this season, and it wasn't something they hadn't done before in their career. But, I think all those moments of whether it was a mistake or whether it was playing more reps, it's all part of them taking all that information and putting it to this week, and so, we don't want to play a lot of plays, but sometimes that happens if you don't execute on 3rd down. That's usually the message. Regardless of how our offense performs or special teams, our job is to go out there and get off the field. And a lot of times that happens on 3rd down. And we were really good the first 2 weeks, not very good last week, and that created some opportunities for them.
You guys seem to do a pretty good job in practice of mixing and matching the personnel groupings you want to run out there, but when a starter that you rely on is not able to play, obviously a new guy has to come in for him, but how does that affect everybody else around him in terms of just, Shaheem knows Akeem knows Shaheem, and, Jared knows, Braden, et cetera, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. I mean, sometimes those things happen, Aslan, during camp and practice, because guys go down, but we are pretty intentional about trying to create those opportunities in practice. But, game time is game time, and, that comfortability, but, there's always going to be 11 guys out there, and we got to put the right guys in, and they've got to be comfortable playing in their roles. And, usually if they're out there on Saturday, we've worked that grouping, or they've worked with each other throughout the week. But sometimes there are things that just pop up, and you've got to kind of turn left on some of the things and get guys in different spots. But we do a pretty good job throughout this season in the year of working guys in multiple roles so that when those things do happen, they're prepared.
You guys have done really well stopping or slowing down traditional running games. What challenge does Clemson's running game present?
Well, they got a really good running back. I think, he's done a really good job of just breaking tackles. He's aggressive. I think he's a really good pass catcher. I know he probably hasn't had the success that he's wanted yet, but, we've seen him at his best, and he's a really good player. And, they got another backup back that comes in and shares carries with him as well. And I don't think the quarterback probably gets enough credit of his athleticism. And, that showed up at times. Going back, obviously, TCU last year used their quarterback in the run game, pretty extensively. I think if they want to use, the one that's at Clemson now, he probably has that ability to be involved with it more.
This is kind of a two-parter. Actually, it is a two-parter. Firstly, Boston College's quarterback. You're going to face mobile quarterbacks. Like you said, the kid you're going to face this week can run. He seemed a little different, though. You don't see many guys that can kind of move and shake and have that, I don't know. I think he kind of moved like a slot receiver that could throw it. I guess, how do you project moving forward knowing you're probably not going to see a guy that runs like him? Was he a whole different ball game than what you've seen? Just the way he runs, maybe even and as shifty as he was, even more than Jaden?
He's a shifty runner. But we've seen quarterbacks like that in the past. I think just when you're playing and as the game gets going and you start giving the information, hey, in these sets, this is what's going to play. And then, guys hear it, and then some guys say, well, I'm going to help out on these things too. I'm going to make sure this doesn't hurt us. Then it creates another issue. I think give credit. The way college football has gone now, you're getting a lot of good players behind the center, and they have options, whether it's to keep it, to throw it, to run quarterback draws. And so just when you're playing, you just got to make sure that, whatever the weakness of each call, guys understand it and still get their job done, and then be able to tilt it in the other way when you need to.
Did he change the way you guys rushed the
I think
quarterback?
at times, but that happens in a lot of games.
And actually, that wasn't my second question. This was my second question. I just stole one. The last call, the Azaria Blitz coming off the edge, is that something you would call in other third and long situations in the game? And then obviously that won the game. That essentially won the game. What was the thinking going into that? Because obviously they had converted a ton of third and longs so far in the game.
Well, it's a good question. We try to have a plan going into the game, and then you just adapt as you go throughout the game. And so to answer your question, that was the first time we brought that pressure that game, and obviously it worked well.
Earlier in the game, BC did a lot of hiding formations, rushing to the line, slowing tempo, playing with tempo. How do you combat that from a defensive standpoint?
That's something, we had anticipated, so, something we incorporated into the weeks of practice. You don't see teams huddle very much anymore, and, it's just, it's something, if you get used to it, it's pretty simple, but, just making sure that our guys were prepared when they broke the huddle to match up on whether it was where the wideouts lined up or the extra offensive linemen at times and whatever that had to be. So, it's definitely something that was a little bit of a change of tempo, but, you think of tempo and there's various ways. Most people think of it as get on the ball, go as fast as you can. That's what we're traditionally seeing in college football. but there are various. I mean, I've seen teams huddle with the offensive lineman and the quarterback and break. I've seen teams that just line up just the skill guys. You know, whatever it is, that team ended up putting 11 guys in and bursting out, and it's something we had practiced, and we just got to be better with it.
Coach, you mentioned earlier, I think, poor eyes and maybe some misassignments there, but how much of that is a result of guys just need more experience on the field in those situations? How much of that is correctable through, say, film study, practice time, game experience, et cetera?
You know, when you talk about eyes, it's all correctable, you know, because if you have poor eyes, that means they weren't in the right place. And so you give them the right, you know, sometimes it's just the execution, the moment of making sure that you're detailed with doing your job and put them in the right place, and then usually that key work will bring you to whatever your assignment is.
There have been stretches this season, you know, the second half against LSU, first half against Southern Miss, and I think the middle two quarters this past weekend where this defense has been like lights out. As you coach these guys, do you focus more on those? Like, this is how good you guys can be, or is it more still attacking those other issues that pop up?
Both. I mean, you always want to correct your mistakes, and you want to make sure that you build on the positives. You know, so I don't think we lean one way or the other. You try to be as honest as you can when you coach your players. You know, this is what we're really good at. This is what we need to address. You know, some mistakes are mistakes, and you know there could be one-offs. If there's a problem that continues, obviously that's got to be addressed either personnel or schematically, whatever that comes to. But you know, I think to answer your question, I heard both. You know, we work at it both ways. Thanks, guys. See y'all.